Well, folks, it's that time of year again, where that day of darkness is upon us. Yes, I'm talking about Halloween. Now, I know there are those of you who are not going to like what I have to say, so be it. This must be said, and this must be heard. I don't know about you, but of all the holidays people celebrate, this is the one that I detest the most. And the reason I'm doing this now is because it is around this time when people begin to prepare. And it is around this time when darkness changes something in the atmosphere. How many of you caught on to what last year's theme was? Do you remember? I uploaded a video on it. Creepy clowns, right? And you know it was the theme because after Halloween, it stopped, didn't it? Well, this year, it's been kept alive. Barely. Thanks to a certain movie. Thanks to Hollywood. The events involving clowns that led up to the day of October 31st last year were pretty dark, weren't they? Well, this year's theme is probably the darkest ever. Do you know what that is? If you've been paying attention, you may have noticed, but I'm sure many of you missed it. So I'm going to let you in on what this year's theme is, and hopefully afterwards, you'll have a better understanding of why it is so important that this year on the day of October 31st, you make sure you walk in the light. Because the freaks come out at night. So I have postulated a theme leading up to October 31st. Let me tell you what that is. The theme for this year, actually first, I want you to think about what happened not too long ago in the Nevada desert. From August 27th to September 4th, there was an event where they burned a gigantic effigy. Now that wouldn't be so significant except less than 1 month later, less than 600 miles away in the same desert, on October 1st, something very bad happened during a harvest festival in Las Vegas. You all know what happened. There are people still discussing it, but there is one thing that they are not discussing. And that is what happened immediately after the chaos. You see, the media was pushing something more than I had ever seen before. And if you didn't notice, that was for as many people that could to give blood. What I am trying to tell you folks is that this year's theme is fire and blood. A radical ritual shortly followed by a harvest festival. Friends, in India, October 1st is National Voluntary Blood Donation Day, which started on October 1st, 1975, under the initiative of the Indian Society of Blood Transfusion and Immunohematology. Did you know this? How many of you know what else happened on October 1st of this year? Oh, you won't believe this one. It has to do with the Shia Muslims' pilgrimage in Karbala, Iraq, where those in observance, both men and children, take a blade and slice open the tops of their heads and whip their own backs with chains, causing them to bleed all over the place. I'm not going to get into why they do this. This is their belief system. I just don't see any good reason for doing this. I mean, you should see the photos of these people screaming with blood dripping down their faces. It's all over their hands. It's all over their white contrasting garments. It is horrific to say the least. I don't care what anyone says. I saw those photos and haven't been the same since. They have been trying to get them to donate blood to hospitals instead. And some people do, but they're going to have to turn around and use that blood on the people who cut and flagellated themselves. Now, I understand why they do this. I don't understand who instructed them to do this. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. This is the world we all live in. But enough about that. Let's talk about this Halloween. Or should I say, Samhain. You see, a couple thousand years ago, in Celtic Ireland, Samhain, October 31st, marked the division between the lighter summer and the darker winter. It was considered their new year. It also marked the thinning of the veil, the division between this world and the spirit realm, making it very easy for spirit entities to pass through that division, as well as increasing psychic abilities among the living. Now, at that time, the Celts were led to believe by the Druids, or men of oak, that the god of the underworld would ascend into our world as the sun descended into the darkness of winter. And with this god came the ghost of the dead, and other harmful creatures followed. So what they would do is, they would light bonfires to aid the sun in its descension with a great fire festival. And they would cater food for the living and the dead in honor of their ancestors. But they needed a way to, at the same time, ward off harmful spirits. So they would wear costumes, disguising themselves to look like these demons, so that they would not be harmed by them. Now, this part of the story sounds like a little kid came up with this idea. If you're able to fool a demon into thinking you're one of them, aren't you going to fool your dead ancestors as well? But I guess they somehow know who's who, right? So as for all these different spirits running around, the Celts would either trick the evil spirits warding them off, or treat the good spirits to food, finishing the night off with a child sacrifice. Now, here's where things get dark and disturbing, as if they weren't already, right? Keep in mind that many of the traditions of Samhain varied slightly as it spread throughout the land, but still holding on to its original intent. So, because these ancient communities were led to believe that evil spirits were roaming around freely at the time, and because the Celts lived in such great fear of these beings and the Celtic priest, they were encouraged by these crazy druids to stay indoors on Samhain. But at the same time, these feared druids would go from household to household, commanding that these families take their youngest child and tie them up outside their homes, giving them up for sacrifice. Now, if the sacrifice was pure and accepted, then a creepy face was carved into a turnip and left outside the home, known today as a jac-o-lantern. This is to let the spirits know it's all good, we got the kid. Pumpkins didn't actually hit the scene until this tradition infected America, and people are celebrating this. Now, if the family, however, refused to give up their child, their home would be vandalized. It would be marked for death. Not with eggs, not with toilet paper or whatever they used back then, but with the sign of the pentagram painted on their door in blood. And this type of witchcraft or voodoo actually caused the deaths of a few, which is more than enough to scare the entire community. Now, folks, spiritual attacks will rise as we move closer to that day, and children are the main targets. Child abductions are on the rise. Lately, this has been in the headlines almost every day. Hold your children close. The Church of Satan is growing so big, they are told to never release the number of members. This way they cannot be quantified. It's on their website, a website I had to go to for research, and one that I recommend you never go to. They are truly getting people to believe that Lucifer is the good guy. They believe he is the light. And a few scientists are jumping on board with them, using the Bible to try and prove this. This Halloween, be prepared. Not just on that day, but on the day before and the day after. The average Halloween practitioner will spend about $75 this year, with almost $7 billion spent nationwide for one freaking day. I've seen people who on this night separate from their children, get into costume and go out and party. They let their kids go out without them. What in the world is wrong with these people? Are you serious? Child abductions, people don't want to look into it because it is quite disturbing. They want to ignore it. Big mistake. The numbers this year are crazy, but some they will not care. They are still going to partake in this. Why? Because it is seductive. It allows people to be something they are not for a night. All in the name of fun. That is why many adults have not given it up. The theme this year is fire and blood. Look at all the media that is put out. Look at Chris Brown's new video, High End. Look at Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp's new video, Say 10. Look at what's being currently released on platforms such as Netflix, The Babysitter. How much blood and fire have you seen this year, folks? The West Coast is burning down in wildfires. Well, maybe they're wild. I wouldn't be surprised if that stopped after this holiday. The point is, a true satanic ritual is not performed in a day, but performed over the span of several months, all leading up to this celebrated day. And you will be able to feel the gloom in the atmosphere. Oh, I do not like Halloween. I do not. And if you don't have the balls, if you don't have the strength to stand up against something that may cost just one child their life as a result of some idiotic tradition that stems from a single country, I don't care who or what hears this message, because I stand by the truth. I stand not by the preservation of some hellish, crappy holiday, but by the preservation of our youth. People will gain nothing from this, but they will lose more than they know when so many people this year have already lost so much. Oh, come on, man. It's not that bad. You're just fear-mongering. Well, that's how Halloween was born. Why don't you tell that to the police and paramedics who have to deal with Hell Night, who have to deal with the vandalism, the arson, the deaths? Tell that to them. Whatever you do this year, folks, please be safe. Think about what you're doing and where you are at the time. Stay as sober as possible. I wish you all well. We no longer live in the good old days, but maybe with a few changes in the things that we do, our days will get much better, and our future, and our children's future, will be much brighter.